We've been on a journey to collect every unique relic Skyrim has to offer, and in the last episode we became the king of Skyrim's criminal underworld, pushing us one step closer to our goal. And today we're going back to college. You see, there are a number of institutions in Skyrim with relics that pay credence to their cultural identities, and while we may be compelled to simply steal the things we want, I'm afraid it's just not that simple. I've got a fairly convoluted plan and a new mandate to make things easier for us, but first, roll that intro. We're trying to fill up this museum in Solitude with every unique thing we can get our hands on, and there's well over 4,000 things to collect, so we're gonna have to leave no stone unturned. This is the Relic Hunter's Guide to Skyrim. So here's the plan. Much like the Underworld factions, we're simply going to join these institutions and attempt to replace whoever's in charge. Ideally with ourselves, that way the relics that contribute to the cultural identity of these institutions will in a way be part of our cultural identities, and thus will be ours for the taking, because you can't steal what you technically already own. And thus, as the Omnithane, I'm instigating a new mandate, the Skyrim Cultural Assimilation Mandate, or the SCAM for short. With this new mandate, every relic of cultural significance that has been kept under lock and key will eventually be owned by me as I move across Skyrim, assimilating any and all cultures I can find, and well, that starts right here at the College of Winterhold. Just a quick recap before we get things going. In the last episode we joined the college, attended a super easy lecture that didn't make me cry, and from there made our way to the Nordic ruins of Sarthal. Within Sarthal we found, amongst other things, a big-ass ball. After killing the nerd guarding the big-ass ball, we returned to the college to inform Archmage Savos Arnd of what we had found, and because none of these people seemed capable of taking anything seriously, I was put in charge of learning more about the big-ass ball and sent to talk to Urag about it. We can find him here in the Arcanium. He's the head librarian around here, and if there's anything to learn about the big-ass ball from books, he's the one to ask about it. Fortunately for us, he knows just the book. Unfortunately for us, some dumb nerd stole the book and f***ed off.
Orthorn stole a number of books when he ran off to Fellglow Keep to join those some kind of peace offering.
Sounds like we're off on a book hunt. Unfortunately, there's a literal walking, talking piece of shit that wants to ask us some questions first.
Tolfdir is still in Sarthal, is he? It has come to my attention that something was found there. I shall be expecting a full report from him when he returns. It is my job to know these things. My role as advisor to the Archmage is aided by knowing everything that transpires.
Shut the fuck. As mentioned, we can find the books here at Fellglow Keep. After making quick work of the nerds outside, we can head inside to make even quicker work of the nerds there, eventually coming across the guy who stole the books in the first place. He offers to help us find the books, and we tell him to get out of our sight immediately. The last thing we need is some idiot nerd boy slowing us down.
Well, if you're sure, I'll just be on my way then.
From there, we can snag our 16th stone of Baron Zaya and make our way into the final room to face the Caller, who is less than pleased to see us.
You come here, my assistants, disrupt my work. You've annoyed me, so I don't think I'll be giving you anything.
Unfortunately, the damage is done and no amount of bluster and threats on her part is going to save her from what's coming next. Live by the nerd, die by the nerd, bitch. With that done, we can snag the books we came for, one of which goes in the museum, and make our way to the exit. On the way out, we can snag this Potema silver piece for our efforts and a Frost Atronach doll, which goes in the Hall of Oddities with the other dolls. Back at the college, we can return the books to Urag.
Night of Tears, eh? I remember this one. Well, isn't that interesting?
From here, Urag directs us to speak with Tolfdir about what we found. Thankfully, we can find him here in the main hall, and while he says he'll make a point to reread the books that we recovered, he ultimately blows us off entirely and asks that we listen to him ponder about the big-ass ball. He makes some fairly basic observations about the language on the ball being unknown to him, and that the ball seems to be gushing with magicka. Before he can continue, however, we're both interrupted by a literal walking, talking piece of shit.
I need you to come with me immediately. I'd like to know why there's someone claiming to be from the Sijic Order here in the college. More importantly, I'd like to know why he's asking for you specifically.
The Sijic monk in question can be found here in the Archmage's quarters. He's nice enough to stop time once again so that we can have a chat to ourselves in private. He quite frankly doesn't say much, just that the big-ass ball is dangerous and needs to be dealt with, and that he can't actually help us deal with it because it's against the will of the Order or some stupid shit like that. He does give us one piece of useful advice, though.
Seek out the Augur of Dunlane here in your college.
He doesn't actually know where we can find the augur, but he's sure someone around here does, and with that he takes his leave in a manner I can only describe as when you're walking down the street and realize you've forgotten something and you have to do that awkward 180 and go back the way you came.
There's been a misunderstanding. Clearly I should not be here. I shall simply take my leave.
Anyway, it sounds like we need to find the augur, and since Savos is here, we might as well ask him.
Has Tolfdir been telling stories again? I thought I made it quite clear that this was a subject inappropriate for conversation.
Well, not exactly what we're looking for, but it is a step in the right direction. Oh yeah, his back was turned to us before, but Savos Aran here is the Archmage of the College of Winterhold. While normally this is the part where I'd say our target has officially been acquired, due to the above-board nature of this establishment, it may not be entirely necessary for us to actually replace this man to get what we want, but I guess that remains to be seen. In the meantime, we're off to see Tolfdir about the Augur of Dunlane. We can find him once again here in the main hall, still doing some big-ass ball pondering. Thankfully, he points us in the right direction we need to go.
Well now, there's a name I haven't heard in some time. My goodness, it's been years since I've spoken with him. I suppose he's still down in the Midden, but I haven't checked.
There are many entrances into the midden which lies beneath the college, but for the sake of ease, we'll be using this one here in the main courtyard. I don't know if it's just me, but the layout of this place has always been very confusing to me, and I tend to get lost down here more often than not. Fortunately, there's a number of interesting things down here that can act as markers for us, including the Atronach Forge. We may have to come back here at some point later on to get ourselves a few relics, but we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. In the same room as the forge, we can acquire the Mustard Jar, which finds its home in the museum storeroom. We eventually come across this door leading into the Midden Dark, which I guess is meant to be the super basement of this place, and just a little ways in we come across yet another door which seems to have the Augur of Dunlane on the other side.
Your perseverance will only lead to disappointments.
Story of my life, homie. Open the fucking door.
Very well. You may enter.
We enter to find the Augur of Dunlane, who appears to be a glowing energy mass thing. Don't do drugs, kids, or you'll end up like this guy, the kind of guy that talks very slowly about absolutely nothing in particular before finally getting to the point.
To see through Magnus's eye without being blinded, you require his staff.
With the auger fizzled out, we can make our way back topside, stopping off in this room with a very fancy Daedric gauntlet shrine thing. We'll deal with this a bit later on, just make sure to snag the investigator's key from the nearby table to make the process a little easier. Additionally, we can also grab the Hlas family key, which opens the nearby chest, allowing us to claim the bipolar blade. It's very fancy, and it goes in the Hall of Heroes. Back topside, we can have a chat with Savos about what we've learned. He doesn't really know much himself, but just so happens to know someone who does.
I seem to recall Mirabelle mentioning the staff somewhat recently. Why don't you see if she can tell you anything?
For our efforts in chasing down this lead, he rewards us with the Mage's Circlet, which goes in the Hall of Heroes with the other head stuff. We can find Mirabelle here in the Arcanium. She doesn't actually know where the staff is and only mentioned it to Savos because a Synod mage from Cyrodiil came to the college asking about it. Seems the Synods have a tendency to find and hoard magical artifacts in an attempt to consolidate power, and we're looking to add the Staff of Magnus to their collection.
The Synod seemed convinced it was somewhere in Skyrim. They inquired about the ruins of Mzulft, but that's all I remember. Just don't expect them to be cooperative.
Well, a lead is a lead, even if it's a bad one, so it sounds like we're off to Mzulft, but first, since we're here in the Arcanium, we can use the Investigator's Key to pop open this chest here and snag 4 ornamental rings that we'll be needing for that Daedra gauntlet thing down in the midden. Just hold on to these for now, we'll be taking care of that stuff in a bit. We can find Mzulft here in East March. Before going inside, however, we're going to pop into the Dwarven storeroom here and snag ourselves some Ethereum ore. Fucking delicious. The only thing trying to stop us are these absolutely disgusting spiders, but thankfully we make short work of them and acquire an Ethereum shard for our efforts as well. Not sure when we'll be making use of this, but it's not going to be soon, so take it or leave it, I suppose. With that done, we can make our way into Mzulft, where we're immediately greeted by a dying Synod.
Find Paratus in Oculary.
Yep, better get used to seeing dead Synods. It seems to be about the only thing they're good at doing. At this point, we just need to make our way through Mzulft, which is about the same as every other Dwemer ruin, full of automatons and Falmer. We did manage to find ourselves a Dwemer copper mark, which is nice and convenient. We also came across our first Falmer lore master. They're vampires, and they almost always carry a piece of ancient Falmer equipment. In this case, we nabbed ourselves an ancient Falmer war mace, which just looks great. We'll need to keep our eye out for these guys, as they are the only way we can acquire normal Falmer equipment, and some of you may remember from the last series that this ended up being a major problem towards the end of the run. Near the end of the dungeon, we can come across and kill this Falmer Shadow Master, and from their body we can recover the focusing crystal that we'll be making use of very soon. But not before heading in the complete opposite direction to face off against a Dwarven Centurion. We did this because in the same room we can find ourselves the Card of Demons Ace, and while we can find this card randomly around the world, why bother when there's a set spawn for us right here? Heading back to the other room, we come across this locked door where we're greeted by, shockingly, a still living Synod.
Let me get the door. What the? What are you doing here? What have you done with Gavros?
We inform Paratus here about Gavros's fate, and he goes on a little rant about how f***ed they are. Apparently they came here with some kind of crystal, however, by the time they arrived, the cold had warped the crystal to the point where it was no longer usable. And if this sounds familiar, it's because he's talking about the focusing crystal we snagged from that Falmer earlier.
That's it? That's it! I don't know who you are, but you may have just saved this little project. Who are you, anyway?
We then inform him that we're from the college, which he's less than thrilled about, but is willing to overlook considering we just saved his ass and his job. He leads us very slowly into the oculory, talking about all sorts of nerd shit that doesn't really interest us until we eventually arrive at the tippy top.
Here it is. Magnificent, isn't it?
Indeed, quite stunning. Inserting the focusing crystal into the machine activates the thing, however, because the focusing crystal was warped by the cold, the whole thing appears to be out of alignment, and your first thought may be to heat it up, but no, we actually have to make it even colder in order to bring the whole thing into alignment. With that done, we simply need to press these buttons up here until everything is all lined up, and then...
These results, they're not at all what they should be. Something is creating an incredible amount of interference. Something in Winterhold, it looks like.
Yes, it turns out that the big-ass ball back at the college is the source of said interference, which Paratus is extremely upset about, but after telling him about it, he calms down a bit and points out that there seems to be another mark on the map.
Well, that can only be Labyrinthian. So, mage from Winterhold, despite your intentions, I've beaten your little game.
Huh?
I know you have something in Winterhold the Synod Council will be very interested in.
Okay.
So trudge off to Labyrinthian in search of your staff. I shall return to Cyrodiil and deliver my full report to the Council.
Have fun with that.
This is not over, I assure you.
We never did see Paratus again. He took one step outside and immediately passed away. Before leaving, we're going to have a chat with this Synod Archivist here. There are a number of relics that we need for the museum that don't really have a set spawn. They're just meant to be randomly found in chests and whatnot. So in order to prevent a battle with RNGesus, we've added the Legacy of the Dragonborn Collectors and Vendors mod, which adds a number of vendors that sell these random ass items. And the Synod Archivist is one of them. She sells books. So in order to make the most of the situation, we bought everything that she had that we needed for the museum, waited 48 hours for her to restock, and repeated the process until she had nothing left to offer us. This allowed us to acquire some 90 or so books that would otherwise be a complete pain in the ass to find. Thank you, Archivist, for being the only useful synod in all of Tamriel. Smash. On the way out, we're greeted by yet another Psijic monk who tells us that we need to get back to the college immediately because shit there has gotten especially sick nasty. Thanks, I was headed that way anyway. Back at the college, things have indeed gotten sick nasty. Seems Ancano has decided to take matters into his own hand and is attempting to harness the power of the big-ass ball all by himself.
Ancano has somehow locked himself in the hall. He's up to something, and I intend to put a stop to it. Help us get through this, will you? We're throwing everything we have at it.
Seems simple enough, and after a few well-placed punches, we can make our way inside to face Ancano. Unfortunately, things do not go the way we want them to. When we come to, we're greeted by Mirabelle, who is looking quite worse for wear.
I haven't seen Savo since the explosion. He must have been blown clear, and he may be injured. I need you to find the Archmage, and I need you to do it quickly. Get moving.
We can find Savos just outside in the courtyard. Unfortunately, he's hella dead, which normally would be great for us, but seeing as we're not a mage and have absolutely zero chance of being put in charge, it's mostly just sad. We can find Tolfdir outside and let him know Ancano is responsible.
Something's happened to Winterhold. It must be whatever Ancano did. You need to get out there and make sure it's safe.
Yes, it seems that Ancano's fuckery has caused some magical problems for the people of Winterhold that we need to take care of. This doesn't really amount to much, just gotta go around fisting these magical things until it tells me to stop. We even have Shadowmare here to lend us a hand. Such a good boy. With that done, we can return to Mirabelle.
Tolfdir and I can try and keep this contained. You need to get your hands on the Staff of Magnus, now.
We let her know that it can be found in Labyrinthian, which she's kind of shocked to hear.
Are you sure? The staff is there. That can't be a coincidence.
You see, before Savos died, he gave Mirabelle a special item and told her it was from Labyrinthian and that she'd know what to do with it when the time came, which I guess is right now.
Take it and get out of here. Bring back that staff before Ancano brings the whole college down around us.
She gives us the Torque of Labyrinthian, which we'll be using shortly, and Savos Aran's amulet, which goes in the museum with the other jewelry. Sounds like we're off to Labyrinthian. Here at Labyrinthian, which can be found just outside Morthal, there's a number of things for us to do before we head inside. First, we're going to head into the Lost Valkig. There's really not much here aside from some Draugr, but we do eventually come across this sort of slanted room, and behind here we can grab the Angel of Death in a jar. Then, back outside, we can make our way for this mound where we can recover the wooden mask ring and amulet, and of course the wooden mask itself, which naturally goes in the Hall of Heroes with the other Dragon Priest masks. Finally, we're going to head into Shalador's Maze. Calling it a maze is actually quite generous. It's really just a long-ass hallway that you need to cast spells to enter and exit. Going through the front gate eventually leads us to Shalador's Stone, which is very cool and fancy, and of course goes in the museum. Around the back, we can grab ourselves another word of the Fear Shout, and then enter the back of the maze to light up the last two panels. This will allow us to access the Trials of Conjuration, which teleports us to some sort of pocket dimension with an angry Jamora. Do be careful when attempting to kill this guy, because if you kill him too quickly, he'll drop dead in the pocket dimension, making the item he has for us unobtainable. So just whittle him down nice and easy until the both of you are teleported out. At that point, we're free to kill the shit out of him and recover the Diadem of the Savant, which goes in the Hall of Heroes. Finally, with all that done, we can make our way into the main dungeon of Labyrinthian, which is aptly named Labyrinthian. In the first chamber, we're greeted by a bunch of ghosts that aren't actually ghosts, no, they're more like plot echoes. From what I can tell, it appears to be Savos Arin and all of his buddies from back when he was just an apprentice at the college. Not exactly sure what they're here for, but they seem pretty gung-ho about it, which they honestly shouldn't be, as this place is extremely hazardous to nerds of all caliber. In the same room, and if you don't already have one, you can find a Patamo gold piece in the urn on the table, and crammed underneath it, we can find ourselves a dragon plate doll. At this point, we can proceed into the next area where we fight the skeletal dragon. It's actually pretty cool, and I honestly wish there had been more types of encounters like this in the game. That being said, it's actually pretty weak, and not having any organs makes little difference to a professional fister such as myself. With that done, we can proceed into the next room where the plot echoes are waiting. Seems one of them got absolutely demolished by the dragon in the previous room. Sucks to suck, I guess. In the same room, we can also find the Torque of Labyrinthian on the ground, which is actually a necklace variant of the Torque, and we'll still need to make a replica of the original Torque once we're back at the museum. Just a little ways further into the dungeon, weird things start happening. Yeah, seems some idiot nerd is trying to talk to us, but we don't speak garbled marbles, so it's anyone's guess what he's actually saying. And just as an extra fuck you, the voice actually drains our magicka as well, which would be a problem if we were a huge nerd and not a super fisting Giga Chad. Arin is dead. He was killed by a walking, talking piece of shit. I'm not Arin. Stop yelling at me. This person is severely underestimating the power of my plot armor. Gods, yes! Arin is f***ing dead! This thing can't hear me. Oh look, the plot echoes are back, down another person it seems. They're in too deep to turn around, so they make the bold and inadvisable decision to keep pushing forward. At this point, whoever's yelling at us finally gives it a rest, and just in time for us to collect some relics. First up, we have the Drainheart Sword, easily one of the more unique pieces of equipment in the base game, followed very shortly by the Drain Spell Bow and the Drain Blood Battle Axe. These all go in the Hall of Heroes, but we'll save that for later. A little ways deeper into the dungeon, we come across this locked gate, and once inside the room, we can grab the Ancient Helmet of the Unburned, which finds its home in the Hall of Heroes. And the honed ancient Nord Greatsword of Scorching, which also goes in the Hall of Heroes. Hot, sexy, scorching. Next, we find a word wall containing the third word of the Slow Time Shout, which of course means we've unlocked yet another banner in the Dragonborn Hall, which you just love to see. These banners were added in version 6, and they are a wonderfully sexy addition in my not-so-humble opinion. We come across the plot echoes once more, and they're down to 3 people now, which really just goes to show how dangerous this place is and how useless these people are. And then finally, after what seems like an eternity, we enter the final room of the dungeon, and what a sight we have before us. Seems the voice that's been bitching at us this whole time belongs to this dragon priest here, and 2 of the plot echoes seem to be holding him in place so he can't escape. Unfortunately, the dragon priest has the Staff of Magnus on hand, so we're gonna have to undo this whole binding thing here and kill the shit out of him. Thanks for wasting your afterlife on such a pointless endeavor, but I think I've got it from here. With them down, we can now face Moroki the Glorious. Fortunately for us, Dragon Priest still seemed to be a bit broken, and consequently, he didn't put up much of a fight whatsoever. From his corpse, we can of course recover the amulet and ring variant of his mask, the mask itself, all his cursed armor, which will eventually purify, and of course the Staff of Magnus. Pretty easy work, and on the way out, we can collect his cloak. Good Deal. Now we just need to take the staff back to the college and put an end to all this bullshit. Oh hey, it's our final plot echo and it seems to be Savos himself. Guess he feels bad for dooming his friends to death, but he's dead now too, so I guess karma caught up with him in the end. Hopefully we don't run into anyone wanting to take the staff from us. That would be less than ideal. For them, I mean. Ho ho ho, traveler. Thanks for getting the Staff of Magnus for me. I'll be taking that. Ho ho ho, idiot. Thanks for bringing this Thalmor ring to me. I'll be taking that. Finally, back at the college, we can see that things have gotten just a little bit out of hand. More than that, it seems that Mirabelle is now dead. Bummer. But I guess that means they're putting Tolfdir in charge after this. I mean, he is the most qualified. Before that, though, we've got a literal walking, talking piece of shit to kill, so let's give it our all and penetrate the fuck out of this college. Looks like someone missed the memo.
You've come for me, have you?
You're just so sexy.
You think I can't destroy you?
That's exactly what I think.
And you think you can do anything about it?
I've literally got just the thing to do something about it. At this point, the fight actually starts. Unfortunately, Ankano's tampering with the big-ass ball has rendered him invincible, and the only way to damage him is to zap the big-ass ball to temporarily sever his connection. Once you've done that, it's really just a matter of fisting him until he eats shit and dies. Stupid motherfucking bitch, know your place, you goddamn filthy, shitty, stupid fuck. From his body, we can recover an exquisite elven blade. There's actually 3 of these in the game, but we really only need one. It finds its home in the Hall of Secrets with the other unique weapons. At this point, Ankano may be dead, but it seems we still have a problem.
Ankano is gone, but whatever he's done to the eye doesn't seem to have stopped.
Sounds bad, but to make matters worse, it seems it's all up to me to figure out as Tolfdir decides to tackle this problem in much the same way I tackle the problems in my life.
I have no idea what to do.
Fortunately, our Sijic monk friend is back, and him and his buddies are going to take care of the problem.
Your victory here justifies our belief in you. You have proven yourself more than worthy to guide the College of Winterhold.
Huh? Guide the college? What, like as a teacher?
You have our gratitude, Archmage.
What? I really don't think you're qualified to make that kind of decision, my guy. You're not even a member of the college. Huh. Neat.
I dare say the Sijics are right. There's no one more deserving to be Archmage, in my opinion.
Tolfdir, you can't be serious. I know I shoot fire out of my goddamn fist, but that was a gift from the stars. I don't even use magic. I mean, surely you would be a much more sound option here. You know what? Fine. This shit just keeps happening. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that it's happened again. I mean, why bother putting someone qualified in charge? Seems any old dipshit will do the trick, so I guess it might as well be this old dipshit. This does give us access to the Archmage robes at the very least, and we'll be needing those for the museum. Well, that was insane, but we're not done yet. We may have saved the college, but now that we're in charge for some ridiculous reason, it's time to put the scam into full effect. And that means scouring this place from top to bottom for relics. I mean, I'm in charge, right? It's not like you're going to stop me from taking things that sort of, technically, kind of, in a manner of speaking, belong to me. The Archmage, right? Anyway, let's get right into it. Starting off in the Hall of Countenance, we've got a golden bowl, a mage doll, a water pipe, another, water pipe, and a Wabbajack wand, which goes in the Hall of Oddities. Yeah, goes in the Hall of Oddities. Moving right along to the Hall of Attainment, there's not much to find in the normal halls that we haven't already, but because the college is now immersive, we can head into the basement level and open up these cabinets here to grab a kettle, a beaker, a teacup, and a glass. Truly the most thrilling of relics. Making our way up to the Archmage's quarters, or rather my quarters, we have an Archmage doll here on the bed. It had actually fallen off the bed, but I put it back up here because it looks better. And a hammered copper pot 4, and I gotta say, I always miss this relic. It's just kind of tucked back here and it blends in so well, I never question it being here. Anyway, that covers most of the stuff just laying around, but there are a number of other relics still to recover. We can get the first one by speaking to Tolfdir and agreeing to find his missing alembic. We found ours here in the Hall of Countenance. We end up having to return it to Tolfdir, but we can make a replica for it later, and it goes in the Hall of Oddities. This next one actually takes us out of the college and back to Hobbs Fall Cave. Again, we're here because we need to pick up a copy of Enchanter's Primer, which conveniently is sitting right on top of the Enchanter here. There's also a Sorcerer's Ring on the Enchanter, which we somehow missed the last 2 times we were here, so I guess it's a good thing we ended up needing to come back. Anyway, with the book on hand, we can return to the college and speak with Sergius, who is the author of this particular book. We ask him to sign it and place that bad boy in the library. And finally, before getting on to the next thing, we're headed down into the Midden Dark to take a look at that gauntlet. If you don't already have the 4 ornamental rings from the Arcanium, now's the time to get them. We just need to place the 4 rings in the correct order, and presto Daedra, a Daedra appears. But not just any Daedra, this guy is a pirate. And we could just send his ass packing back to Oblivion, but this homie can spot a swindler a mile away, and instead offers us a deal that we won't be refusing.
Release me, and I'll share a bit of my wealth with you.
We of course agree to his terms and say the magic words to release him from our hold. Velixane, get the fuck out of here.
There's a smart lad.
In return, he gives us his treasure map. Taking a look at the map, we can see that the treasure is actually not that far. In fact, it's just here next to this statue of Talos. We need to have the map on hand for the treasure to appear, and once we're close enough... Aside from the usual goodies and boobed up statues, inside the chest we can find the real treasure, a Daedric face of inspiration. It of course goes in the Daedric Gallery. Right, our next major task is actually a continuation of the College of Winterhold story, sort of. It's called the Fall of Winterhold, and as the name suggests, it explores the Great Collapse, otherwise known as the time that most of Winterhold collapsed into the ocean, leaving it, much like myself, a sad husk of its former self. To get things started, we just need to head down into the Midden and enter this big-ass door. That brings us into this fairly closed-off room where we can find a gate leading down. Once we're down there, we're going to want to spend around 5 minutes or so wandering around aimlessly, wondering what the hell exactly we're supposed to be doing, until we eventually realize this wall here is interactable and can be taken down to actually move forward. At this point, you just want to follow the more or less linear path until you come across this big-ass room that seems to contain the ruins of old Winterhold. The path remains mostly linear, but now there's a little ghost boy here to show us the way, so we'll just do our best to follow him. Mind the falling rocks, though. Eventually, the little ghost boy will lead us into this battlement where we can find 2 different dolls, and in the toy chest itself, we can collect a toy dragon. These all go in the museum, but since it's the main display of this episode, we'll be saving it for the end. Heading through the main gate and continuing to follow the still mostly linear path leads us to the Temple of the Gods. Once inside, we can find 2 separate urns and a tea kettle, which all go in the museum. Then we can take a look at this journal, which details the last days of old Winterhold. To make a long story short, there was a priest and he used vaporized skooma to spice up his sermons, and then a tsunami came along and just demolished Winterhold, which caused at least this part of it to sink into this huge cavern we're in. The people trapped down here eventually starved to death. That's all very sad, but I think the main takeaway here is that there's skooma in this little receptacle back here, so I'll just be taking that. I'm fine. The same can't be said about all these Draugr, who are very upset that I tried to take the last of their skooma. With them defeated, little ghost boy shows up and points us in the direction of the trapdoor leading into the temple's basement. There's not much down here aside from what appears to be a writ of sealing for some homie named Bainark, a big chest for our efforts, and a canopic jar, which if you don't know is that thing Egyptians use to store the organs of people who are being mummified. I guess they just chucked all this dude's organs into one jar, which is kinda nasty. With that all taken care of, we can head outside the temple and find little ghost boy, who will lead us to our next location, which in this case is Old Winterhold's Hall of the Dead. For our purposes, it's little more than your average Nordic ruin full of Draugrs and the like. We did come across this Draugr giant though, which I thought was pretty cool. We eventually proceed into the Winterhold catacombs and come across Nofur Spear Ear. Whether he was an elf or just had f***ed up ears is up for debate, but he goes down like the rest. We can find a note on his body that seems to imply that he both executed and now guards the tomb of Bainark, or rather, he did guard the tomb of Bainark. At this point, you'll want to wander around for a few minutes wondering what the hell you're supposed to be doing before making your way back to where you were to find little ghost boy. There's also little ghost girl this time. They eventually disappear and Bainark rises from his tomb. He speaks to us, but because I don't speak garbled marbles, I can only assume he said something like, "Ho ho ho, traveler, thanks for getting my organs for me, I'll be taking that." Whatever the case, he doesn't seem to like us very much and starts reviving various undead to try and kill us, starting with basic Draugr. After that, he summons Osa Domini, who appears to be a mage of some kind. Not sure, kinda tough though. After that, he summons Osa Macello. Not even gonna try and guess what this thing used to be. It's weaker than Osa Domini at any rate. With that done, Bainark does whatever I do when I get fed up with a fight in this game. He then promptly leaves. With that done, you're once again going to want to wander around for about 5 minutes wondering what in the actual f*** you're meant to be doing before looking up a video guide and realizing that there was a lever here the entire time. This whole passage takes us to the Sky Temple ruins, and once outside we can witness Baynark rising from the ground. He then immediately resurrects a nearby dragon from its mound, totally invincible while he's doing so, I might add. Once he's done with that though, we can kill the shit out of him. Not so strong now that you're in fisting range, are ya? From his dust pile, we can recover Baynark's ring and the abominable staff, which is honestly kind of fun looking. Like, I think I just found my new pointer. Now we just need to kill the dragon, Kavozane. He does the usual flying around, but eventually lands and receives a full face fisting. Can you imagine being this dragon and you finally come back to life and the first motherfucker you see is Dragonborn? Like, damn, that is some awful luck, my guy. And with that, we have completed the Fall of Winterhold quest, collecting around 8 or so relics for our efforts, and you might be looking at the time left on this video wondering why the hell we're not done. Well, that's because there are still a number of relics and displays left to acquire, and in order to acquire said relics, we're going to need to complete some ritual spell quests. For those that don't know, once you reach level 90 in one of the 5 mage skills, you can approach the respective master at the college and begin the ritual spell quest for that skill. Completing the quest gives you access to master level spells for that particular skill. Now hang on, don't get ahead of me here because there's more. For the sake of relics, the only quests that I'll need to complete are the Alteration and Conjuration ritual spell quests. This will give us access to 2 relics that belong in the museum. However, there's a problem here. I'm sure you've noticed that certain things we do have added displays to the museum. These displays are nothing too grand, they're usually just little dioramas to honor my glorious and, dare I say, kind of hot accomplishments. Well, it just so happens that one of the displays for the museum requires us to get at least 3 of our magic skills up to 100. Okay, I mean that's harsh, but it could always be worse. And it totally is, because there are 5 individual displays for getting all 5 magic skills up to 100. And yes, these displays count towards the total, so not doing them is not an option. Anyway, long story short, the video's not over because I have to get every single mage skill to 100. We're going to get things started with Alteration. This one will actually be remarkably quick, and that's all thanks to the influence of Sheogorath. Step 1, acquire Mage Light. Step 2, stand around here-ish outside Solitude's front gate. Step 3, aim towards the peak of the mountain above you. Step 4, shoot Mage Light at the peak. That's really all there is to it. We just for the occasion to make this easier on ourselves, but just a few short minutes later and we're done. Okay, so I was going to do Destruction next, but in order to do it really fast, I need a spell tome that's in the museum. Unfortunately, the museum appears to be haunted, and we've got to sort it out before we can get our hands on the tome we need. And for the sake of brevity, we're going to take this step by step and keep it short. Talk to Brother Icard. Go to the library and grab this note. It's from the previous owner of the building to his wife. He loves it here, but misses her. Talk to Brother Icard. Take a nap. Wake up and follow Brother Icard. Enter the Gallery of Natural Science and find this old journal. The previous owner had a portrait made of himself. Still loving it here. Talk to Brother Icard. Enter the museum storeroom and grab this portrait. Hang the portrait in the reception hall. It counts as a display. Talk to Brother Icard. Take a nap. Read the note on Brother Icard's bedside table. It's the news. The previous owner's wife is dead. Don't flinch. Head to the second floor. Observe Short Ghost. Read Journal. Previous owner is very sad and commissions a marble statue of his wife. Talk to Brother Icard. Place ladder on roof. Go down ladder and follow path. Read commission contract. Talk to Brother Icard. Go to Katla's farm. Talk to Morgaine Ulfstead. Buy the statue for 4,000 gold. Arian will reimburse you after the quest is over. Wait 24 hours. Talk to Brother Icard. Quest complete. Smash! It's just that easy. For our efforts, we can head into the museum and collect the Ghost Helm. It goes in the Hall of Heroes with the other helmets. And you know what? Smash. Right, moving right along, the spell tome we're after is Unbounded Storms, and that's because this particular tome and others of its kind have been touched by the influence of Sheogorath. All you really need to do is go somewhere on one end of the map, ideally away from other people, begin channeling the spell, and while channeling, fast travel across the map. A single round trip pushes us to 100, and all it took was 2 fast travels. Also, quick sidebar, while we were at the Shadowstone, and before we fast traveled back, we encountered Balbus, and boy are we glad to see him. You see, Balbus here is a random event character. You know those random NPCs you meet on the road and they have names like Farmer and stuff. Usually worthless, but Balbus here is unique because he's a chef and he is looking for the gourmet. And well, I just so happen to have a letter in my pocket that says I'm the gourmet. So we show Balbus this letter that confirms we're the gourmet, and in return he gives us a bunch of food items, but most importantly, he gives us Balbus's fork, which goes in the Hall of Oddities. Thank fuck. Illusion wasn't as straightforward as the first two, but that doesn't mean it wasn't quick. First thing we did was spam Muffle until we reached level 50 or so. From there we purchased the Pacify spell from Drevis at the college. With the Pacify spell in hand, we headed into the Bannered Mare and just started chucking it around. Stay calm, stay calm, stay calm, stay calm, stay calm, stay calm. Fair warning, the stay calm method can occasionally hardlock the game, so quick saving often is recommended. All in all, this took us about 30 minutes, and that's start to finish, including the restart and the time I spent messing around. Restoration was significantly less straightforward. I ended up messing around with a number of different options until I settled on something rather slow but easy. Basically, you put Equilibrium in one hand, which trades HP for Magicka, and then you put Healing on the other hand. The two spells can be channeled forever, which will slowly but surely get you all the way to 100. But it was super crazy slow, so I did pray to Hermimora and boosted it about 21 levels. This made the whole thing much faster, but Hermimora did abandon me for taking things overboard. Overall, this took about an hour. Finally, we have Conjuration. This one was also not as straightforward as the others, but we started things out by heading to the Solitude Catacombs because generally speaking, you can't gain XP for conjuring things unless you're in battle. So we made use of our skeleton friend here and conjured dual swords. Then we just simply sheathed the swords, causing them to vanish, and repeated that process. We eventually got bored and settled on soul trapping this fellow over and over again, but that was much too slow and boring for me, so I went looking for other options and found something incredible. You see, because we had done so much leveling, we had plenty of perk points to spend, so I went looking through the Conjuration tree to see if I could find anything to speed things along, and that's when I came across the Gatekeeper perk. It's very simple. It allows us to activate our conjured summon and banish it back to oblivion. Doing so will grant us 50 Magicka in return. So I headed back to the college, picked up some high-level summons, and returned to the Solitude Catacombs. I made sure to keep our skeleton friend alive for this and began summoning and banishing a Dremora Lord over and over again. In the end, we're still losing Magicka, but it wasn't enough to make a difference, and after about 5 minutes or so, with all that done, all of our mage skills were now maxed out. Feels pretty damn good. It may not have made sense before, but we are now very much qualified to be in charge of the college. And so here we are back at the college to wrap up the last few remaining things to do. I thought going into this section that meant ritual spell quests, but it turns out we forgot a few things, so let's jump right in. First up, we're going to have a chat with Drevis. Apparently the magic geysers or whatever need to be tuned, and he wants us to do it. So he hands us a pair of mystic tuning gloves to get the job done. After tuning all the spots, we can return the gloves to Drevis and then craft ourselves a replica which goes in the Hall of Heroes with the other gloves. Moving right along, we're going to have a chat with Arniel Gain. He's kind of a whiny little bitch, but he needs our help with an unofficial project he's been working on. The first thing he needs is 10 Dwemer cogs. No problem, we've been collecting these and we've got a stash at the museum. Oh yeah, if you're not actively collecting these, you really should be. We can hand those in to him and move on to the next step. It seems Arniel ordered something through Enthyr, and Enthyr is refusing to give him the thing he ordered for whatever reason. We can then go speak to Enthyr, who explains that in return for the item, he wanted Arniel to acquire a unique staff for him. Arniel refused and then threw a hissy fit like the bitch he is. We agree to acquire the unique staff in Arniel's stead and make our way to Crag Wallow Slope. Once inside, it's just the usual bunch of nerds who would have been better off just pretending to be dead. We also managed to find the Veil of the Seer, which was ported over from Oblivion and goes in the Hall of Heroes. Then we can find the guy with the special staff, file his tax returns, and take the unique staff for ourselves. I mean, sure, it's nice, but it's not nice enough to go in my museum. With the staff on hand, we can return to Enthyr, who takes the staff and gives us the special item that Arniel was after, a warped soul gem. We take it back to Arniel, who thanks us for our efforts. And naturally, this man can't do anything right and again needs our help. It seems he was trying to heat the warped soul gem up in his homemade convector, but is so useless that the one he made broke after a couple uses. And so he hands the warped soul gem over to us and asks that we venture to 3 separate Dwemer convection units in order to heat the gem. He then gives us a special spell that's normally completely useless in order to heat the convection units. Sounds good. Our first stop is the one in the Dwemer storeroom. Bingo, bango, bongo. Then it's off to this ruin just a little ways west of Fort Greenwall. Bing, bang, boom. Our last stop is the ruins of Bethalft. Gotta kill some bandits when we're here, as well as this fellow named Ergnok, who just so happens to have the Dwemer mail set on his person. This set goes in the Hall of Wonders. Blammo, whammo, glammo. With that done, we can return the warped soul gem to Arniel. Unfortunately, there's one last item that he needs, but it should be arriving shortly, and so with that, we head back to Solitude and wait a few days, and wouldn't you know it, the item never arrived. Seems Enthir is holding out on him again, which I seriously doubt is the case. Speaking to Enthir, of course, proves that suspicion. The package just straight up never arrived. Not much Enthir can do about that, but if we want to go hunting for the package ourselves, we're more than welcome to do so. And so we do, which ends up leading to Autumn Shade Clearing, and after clearing out a Spriggan and a bunch of bears, we can search the dead courier to find Keening, an ancient Dwemer dagger and one of the tools of Kagranak. Normally I wouldn't dream of giving such a thing away, but to an idiot like Arniel, I'm not too worried, and well, it seems Arniel has been researching the disappearance of the Dwemer and has been collecting all of these things in an attempt to recreate the circumstances surrounding their disappearance, or at least an approximation. As the Archmage and the Master of Magics, I should probably point out that this is a very bad idea, but let's see what happens.
I don't understand. This should produce some notable effect. Work, damn you!
Huh. Well, with that, we can snag Keening. It goes in the Hall of Lost Empires. For now. Well, that was a slog, but it's finally time to do the ritual spell quest. So we're going to start with Alteration, so it's off to speak with Tolfdir. He's just here in the main hall, and to make a long story short, he's trying to improve the Ebony Flesh spell, but needs Dragon Heart Scales in order to do so. However, in order for us to retrieve said Heart Scales, we need a special dagger known as Kavozane's Fang, named after a dragon we just recently killed. And so, we're off to Highgate Ruins, and if you're as huge a nerd as I am, you know why this is kind of an annoying place for it to have spawned. Upon entering, we're greeted by Anska. She's looking for a special scroll. The main problem is that it's being guarded by Vo-Kun. Shouldn't be a problem for us, but man, I didn't want to fight another dragon priest. These dungeons are long as hell. Anyway, you know the drill. We killed a bunch of Draugr, solved a puzzle, killed some more Draugr. Oh, nice. And finally arrived in the final chamber to face Vo-Kun, where we proceeded to smoke his ass. From his corpse we recovered the amulet and ring variant of his mask, and of course the mask itself. Then in the back room we recovered his cloak, the special scroll for Anska, and a word for the storm call shout. We then returned the scroll to Anska and searched this big chest for our efforts to recover Kavozane's Fang, which goes in the Hall of Heroes. The main thing we were after was Kavozane's Fang, but we might as well wrap this up, so we made our way to Mount Anthor and killed the ancient dragon roosting there. With the dagger equipped, we simply interact with the corpse and acquire some dragon heart scales. Returning those to Tolfdir earns us his respect and the dragon flesh spell. Next up is the Conjuration Ritual spell. This one is much more straightforward. We'll start this out by speaking with Finis. Basically, in order to learn more, we need a Sigil Stone, and in order to get one, we need to summon an unbound Daedra and bend it to our will. Finis gives us the spell to summon the Daedra and recommends we use the roof for this. Up on the roof, we can find a nice little summoning circle where we can summon our unbound Daedra. Naturally, it doesn't have any intention of doing what we say, and you may be wondering how exactly one bends a Daedra to their will. Well, it's simple, really. Yes, it seems there are little problems that can't be fixed with a stern fisting. We summon that bad boy again and he still won't listen, and that calls for another fisting. A third summon later and he's much more compliant and agrees to receive a Sigil Stone for us. He pops away and we summon him one final time where he finally hands over a Sigil Stone. The Sigil Stone itself was actually the relic we were after in this case. It goes in the Daedric Gallery. We can then return the stone to Phineas, who gives it right back to us with a spell that summons a Flame Monarch. Neat. Okay, last thing, I swear. As you may or may not know, the college questline had most of its content cut from the base game, but a number of the things related to those quests were left in the game, and with the various mods I have, some of that content has been brought back for us to discover, and most importantly, recover relics from. In this case, I'm referring to the Missing Apprentices. Basically, there was going to be a quest where you needed to find and ascertain the fate of 4 of the college's apprentices, Isra, Rundi, Elis Tay, and Borvir. Their bodies and special relics remain scattered across the area surrounding the college, and finding those will be the last thing we do today. Starting out with Isra, we can find her corpse along the north coast next to whatever that ruin is. It's hard to miss at any rate. From her body, we can recover Isra's necklace. Looks like she was trying to accomplish a flame cloak spell and ended up extua quithby. Moving right along to Elis Tay, we can find him northeast of Ysgramor's tomb, which is approximately northeast from where Isra was located. It appears that he was messing around with the Calm and Frenzy spells and died from his hubris. From his body, we can recover Elis Tay's ring. Next up is Rundi. This one is a little trickier to find, but the location is kind of south and a little ways east of the college on the lower ice shelf. Once there, we can find an altar with Rundi's dagger. It goes in the Hall of Heroes. Since there doesn't seem to be a body and it looks like he was studying conjuration, my guess is that he banished living himself and ended up in oblivion, or he got eaten by wolves. Finally, we have Borvir, who we can find in the Journeyman's Nook, which is southeast from the Whistling Mine. We'll have to kill the bandit that's taken up residence here, but once we've done that, we can collect Borvir's dagger, which also goes in the Hall of Heroes. This guy's death is pretty cut and dry. He was killed by this bandit. I don't know what he was doing out here instead of at the college, but we'll go ahead and call this death by pride. And just like that, we've wrapped up most of what the college has to offer us at this stage of the story. And while normally I'd make some quip about how much the college sucks, I actually really like the college. It was one of the first things I did when I first played Skyrim back in 2011, and while the lens of time may have warped some perceptions on it over the years, I was absolutely enthralled back then. So the college will always have a special place in my heart. Can't say the same for Arniel Gain though. Seriously? Screw that guy. I hope you enjoy non-existence, you condescending fuck. Hello, and welcome to the Relic Hunter Report. I just gotta say first off, the scam has been a massive success. Through the college alone, we've managed to collect around 75 mostly unique relics, and that's not taking into the account the 90 or so books we picked up from that Synod Archivist. And now, without further ado, let's take a look at some of these relics on display in their full glory. Let's start with the Dragon Priest mask display. It's still incomplete, but we've managed to add 3 new masks in this episode alone. They are Morogi's mask, Vokun's mask, and the Wooden mask. We'll track the rest of these down eventually, and once we do, we're in for a real treat. Moving right along, it seems only fitting that we check out the main display for the college. Nothing too wild going on here. We have the Archmage robes on the right, the Stone of Shalador on the left, and the Staff of Magnus adorning the dais in the center. It's simple, it's clean, it's cunning, and honestly, it's kinda hot. Smash. You know it's a smash. Don't even at me about it. Since we're here in the Hall of Heroes, let's snag a quick look at the spectral weapons we picked up from Labyrinthian, the Drainspell Bow, the Drainblood Battle Axe, and the Drainheart Sword. Very mindful, very demure. Demure? Still in the Hall of Heroes, and for our efforts in getting at least 3 magic skills up to 100, we have this wonderful statue. It is 1 of 3, so I'm sure you all know what that means. Moving into the library, and for our efforts for getting all 5 magic skills up to 100, we have... Wait, that's not... Don't cut to me! Get that thing out of my face! Cut to commercial! Buy Jazzbay grapes!
Do it.
It's gonna be alright, man. Look, it just means you'll have to do the other 3 ritual quests. Moving into the library, and for our efforts in completing all 5 ritual spell quests, we have these wonderful plaques here representing each school of magic, now wonderfully illuminated. Feels good. Just feels so good. Heading into the Dragonborn Hall, we have this wonderful diorama representing our triumph in the Fall of Winterhold quest, which includes a statue and a bone throne. Left from there, we have the various relics added by the immersive College of Winterhold, mostly glassware and the like, but there's also these adorable dolls and toy dragon. We of course have Bainark's ring, which is just chilling right there, and the abominable staff adorns the whole thing. Just marvelous. And to wrap things up, still in the Dragonborn Hall, we have one final diorama representing our completion of the main college questline. It's actually made up from the assets you see during the loading screen, so that's pretty cool. But enough of that, let's jump right into the totals. I know I said I wasn't going to do a full report until after the companions, but I changed my mind. I mean, it's not like you're going to complain, right? If you're going to complain, do it in the comments. Anyway, over the course of the last 3 episodes, we managed to add an additional 463 displays to our total. It's pretty good. It certainly makes me long for the days when the Relic Reclamation Mandate was in full swing, but I digress. Let's break it down. Stop, stop, stop! Not like that! You need to cut the shit, okay? Don't make me fist you. Of the 463 relics we recovered, 184 of them were, of course, books. And some maps, but mostly books. At the very least, it's starting to get to the point where it actually looks like a library in here and not just a bunch of shelves, so we take those. The books accounted for about 40% of our 463 total. Another 15% and a whopping 77 displays goes to the armory. Woohoo! That's so great! This place is still shockingly sparse. And look, I know what's gonna need to happen, so I'll have you know that I've been saving all of my dragon bones and mining every single ore spot I see. And you should too, unless you enjoy suffering. We can toss another 3% or so towards what are mostly gems. We've really run out the clock on finding new gems just laying around, so there's really been little progress to report there. But after all that, we're left with around 185 actually unique relics, and damn, that just feels good. It may not be the most impressive number, but are you gonna live to be that old? I didn't think so. Anyway, enjoy these glamour shots of some of those things we found while I tally the final numbers. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope you enjoyed those. If there's something that I've missed that you want featured in the Relic Hunter report, please let me know in the comments and I would be happy to include it. Right, at the last official Relic Hunter report, we are sitting at 945 relics, and in case you've forgotten, that was out of 4,426, and that put us at a very modest 22.55%. And well, through our efforts in becoming both a thief and an assassin, and in no small part to the ongoing success of the scam, I am proud to announce that our total now sits at a whopping... You're supposed to play a drum roll. Oh shit, sorry. Bruh, I swear to God. 1,409, which bumps our completion percentage up to a slightly more modest 31.83%. I'll go ahead and put the full report up on the screen. Feel free to pause the video and check it out. And look, I know a 9% percentage bump may not be amazing, but what are we running the gauntlet here? No, we're not. This is a marathon. It's about endurance. It's about finding the will to fist another day. Finding the will to pursue the things you love. In my case, that's relics. In your case, it might be something else. The point is, you may look at the totals and think that they're not all that impressive, but you're wrong. That 9% is a culmination of blood, sweat, tears, and copious amounts of lizard slime. And you'll never take that from me. Anyway, the question that remains is what's next? Well, the companions, of course, using the power of the scam, we will assimilate their culture and make off with every relic we can get our hands on. Because, like, they'll sort of be ours, in a way. And also legally, now. In fact, you could say resistance is futile. What? I just don't know about that one. It's like you want me to fist you. And of course, a huge shout out to our museum benefactors. They are Alex Van Loo, Drake, Milkrice, Key of Destiny, Professor Draco, Dalton Baird, WN, Patton Elliott, Cassiopeia, Robin, Bro the Boomer, Red Dragon, Bizdirect, Alex Assassin, DBuzzyB, Lucifer, Baked Brownie, Gandazia, Steven, Lorekeeper98, Coors Banquet Girl, Conra Hatake, Master of Fate, Unung Unrama, the SP Chef, and Arturi Hervansalo. Sorry for butchering that. And of course, another huge shout out to Alex Van Loo. You've been a member for 2 years and you got that nice little rainbow badge. I hope it was $24 well spent. And I, of course, appreciate everyone so much for watching. I wouldn't be able to make these videos without your guys' support, and I appreciate it. Of course, I'm stumbling through this because I'm just recording it on the fly, but hey, thanks guys, and thanks for watching. If you're still here, hey, maybe subscribe, leave a like. Bye!